Fast track's always been on my radar. I've submitted multiple times before I won with different scripts throughout the years. So this wasn't my first rodeo, and I was very pleased that I won fast track. But yeah, I mean the reputation is great. I'm always getting emails. I know another person who won fast track a few years ago, and it's really helped his career. So um, I was excited to get the call, because I've gotten pretty far in contests before, like been finalist and all this stuff. And typically, you may get a phone call, and I know on the day that they were supposed to announce the fast track winners, there was no call, there was no email, and I was like, okay, all right, I guess I didn't win, kind of thing. And then some more hours go by. I'm like, yeah, it's a wrap. And then I actually checked, went to the site, and I saw I won. I was like, oh, what? I won, like. So I was super excited about that. And just when I was down, I didn't want to win anyway. I was those guys, and it's like, oh, no, 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 I wanted to win. I wanted to win. Oh, I mean, obviously, I always tell my wife, and I have a guy that I work very closely with. He's my my reader. He cracks the whip on me as far as the logic police, and he's really good at giving feedback and notes. And he was very very helpful with me, getting Divided States where it was. So yeah, my his name's Louis, so he really helped me out with the script. Just something I was compelled to do. I think as most people, you start off as a fan and you watch a bunch of movies and you're really drawn into it and you're like, wow, for me it was watching a bad movie and I was like, I know I can do better than that, kind of thing. And you just kind of go about, at least in my way, I just kind of went about writing the movie I want to see. And so you watch a movie and you're like, oh, they should have did this instead of that, or I would have did it this way instead of that. That's the movie you write. Kind of break the mold and kind of take it somewhere and put your DNA and your fingerprint on the thing. Yeah, my story's a little different. I mean, I was always into the arts, like as a elementary school, I drawing, painting, wanted to be an illustrator, wanted to be an artist, kind of thing. Always loved movies, but didn't really put two and two together until mid 20s. So it's like, oh, I love arts, I love movies. Let's put them together. We got peanut butter and we got jelly. Holy cow! If you put them together, look what they make, kind of thing. And that was, an epiphany for me at about 26, probably. So at that point, I didn't know anything about filmmaking, didn't know anything about writing. I just went out and bought a camera and bought Final Draft and just did it. The first screenplay I ever saw was on a DVD ROM. Um, Boiler Room, the movie. I think Giovanni Ribisi and Vin Diesel about stock trading, and it had like a bonus disc, or you flip the disc over, and it was like a CD-ROM. I know I'm telling my age here, but and it would show you the actual script on like half of the screen while the movie was playing, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. It's not a book, but it's describing the movie and they're doing it. And I was like, oh, so this is what a script looks like. So from that point, I think I went out and I bought like a basic 101 screenwriting for dummies book type thing, and um some writing software, and just kind of went out and just wrote. The thing that helped me more, and even the things that help me more to this day, are not necessarily a how-to book, but I like reading books that explore the why more than the how to. Like just reading about guys like Kevin Smith and how he felt like he just had to make Clerks. Like that stuff was more important to me than slug line action dialogue, kind of thing. Like it's the why was more important than the how. I think everyone, you need to know the basics, but then don't get so caught up on how to. The why is more important, because if you get so caught up in the how to, I mean, you're just gonna your stuff's it may feel just kind of maybe too assembly line-ish, like everything else that's kind of come before it, because you're just focused on the nuts and the bolts and not the heart. Like when you're writing for spec, like I'm writing for me. I'm the audience of one. Like my little rules are, because the screenwriting books will tell you to like, number one, think of the audience. Think of the reader. Who are you going to pitch this thing to? You have to get somebody else excited about it, and it's this and it's that. Like my number one is me. I want to write something that I'm interested in and that I think is entertaining, because I'm not getting paid for it. Like, why would I write for somebody else for free? Like, I'm going to write. No, I get the freebies, not you. And then number two for me is always the actor. It's always, I want to have characters so good on the page that an actor, like, and not just any actor, like an actor that has options, like like a pretty heavyweight person would read it and say, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Like, so it's like, so if I love it and I can get an actor excited about it, and then at that point, I'm hoping the audience will like it too. So the audience is kind of third on my list as opposed to first. You know, the story, The Divided States of America, you know, it just, man, it just worked for me on so many levels. And I felt like I was the right person to tell it. I know some of that world. And also, too, there's a very distinct tone in that script as far as like, just like on one page, it's like this brutal, just heinous, just graphic violence. And then on the next page, it can be something that's really funny, you know, and kind of like, I guess maybe the Coen Brothers do that stuff pretty well too. They balance, humor and dark humor and violence. And so like this is like dark humor, it's violence, and then it's racism in there too. So it's like you're juggling these three things, and it all has to be balanced because it can't be too funny because then it's not as serious. It can't be so dour that it's like you don't even want to read it because it's so depressing. And so you got to find that right balance to where it's educational, it's funny, and it's entertaining. So it's like I feel like I feel like I did that pretty well. It's set in a pretty much a world like we live in now, United States, but a little bit more heightened racial sensitivity. And there's this hate crime that happens at a prominent university in the South, a majority white school, to a black athlete. And at that point, Black America says no more, and they call for a boycott on all of the Southeastern Conference schools of all black athletes. And so those athletes in turn migrate to black colleges, to HBCUs, historically black college and universities, and it creates this big rift in the country, because people love their football, whether they're racist or not, and I just thought that whole idea was just so interesting that, like, is there racism in the South? Absolutely. Are some of those people devout football fans? Absolutely. So I just love the irony. Like, as a storyteller, I look at the irony. I love the irony of a person like cheering for their team, living and dying for their team every Saturday, but they're cheering for people that they don't like. I love that irony. I love how we can, like, how they can, what do you call it, compartmentalize or whatever, and just like, no, 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 that's for this 3 hours, I'm going to root for this guy to score a touchdown. But after that, I would never have him in my home. I wouldn't shake his hand, So it's like it's a value thing. It's like, no, I like you because you're doing something for me. You're helping my team win. But outside of that, no, I don't like you. The note that I always give myself on the humor is to never try to be funny. you know Most modern day comedies don't work for me because they're trying to be funny. Like everything in life, comedy, drama, everything, it comes from like a grounded place. It comes from, like, it needs to work like from a drama standpoint. Like, to me, comedy is something that, I don't know, it's funny when it's funny if it's happening to someone else, but if you survive it and you can talk about it, a week later, like, oh my gosh, guess what happened to me on Tuesday. So, but in the moment it's not funny to you, but if you survive it, then you can joke about it afterwards, kind of thing. So it's like, the kind of humor I kind of gun for is, like, man, I'm glad this isn't me, kind of thing. But it has to come from a real grounded place instead of, you know, hey, this needs to be funnier, kind of thing. Yeah, well, and see, he has ideas. He's, I mean, we all have our strengths. He's an actor by trade. But I do have other people, so it's not just Louis. I have like this little small group of friends who I really trust, and each person has a specific viewpoint. So this person may really be good at what a character would or wouldn't do. This person may be good at setting. This person may be good at doing proofreading. So you have this team of like 4 or 5 people. I got Louis, I got Michelle, I got, like, people that my script just kind of goes down the line, and each person puts their notes on the thing, and I kind of look at it and go, okay, yeah, I don't agree with every note. I mean, ultimately, it's your script, so you don't just make any changes to it that you don't want to make. But a lot of times there's value in others' opinions for sure, and
And
it's
the
good to
fact,
get different, like, different voices, different ages, men, women, older, younger, to see, like, hey, they're watching this thing on TV, whether it's a movie or a show. How do they feel about it? They're different, a different demographic than what I am. Was that part funny to you because it was funny to me, or was that part, like, I want to kind of get a gauge. So I really try to put my scripts through the ringer, through my little conveyor belt of friends and readers before it goes out. Like, so what I try to do, and this is just me again, so like I get a draft of a script, the first two people it's going to are my two right hands, which are, Louis and my friend Michelle. Get their feedback, go make any adjustments. Then I send it to my next group of like my second tier people, get their feedback. Then I get that thing as good as I think I can get it to where it's like flawless, like there's nothing wrong with it. Then I send it out for coverage. And then I get the coverage back to see what did I miss? Okay, what am I oblivious to? Holy cow, this thing right here, didn't even notice that. Go in, make that change, send it to another group of readers, and then at that point I have a table read with a bunch of actors I know. Go to the table read, then I take all of their notes, then I go through and update it again, then I proofread it, and then I send it out for coverage a second time. See if I'm missing anything then. Then after that, I go back, make any last adjustments. Then I send it to another proofreader, and then at that point, it's ready to go out. So that's my process now, and it takes a little bit of time, but I think it makes this. It really bangs on that script to try to make it as airtight as possible. Interesting for sure. I think everyone was very nice, very receptive. They, I think they pretty much all read the script except for maybe one person. But yeah, they really gravitated to the material. Very easy to talk to, very friendly. Um, and hopefully, I mean, Hollywood's a long game. There's never really a thing where you meet somebody on Monday and then Tuesday you're signing like $100 million Netflix deal or something like that on the next day. So, I mean, I feel like there were good seeds planted, and I'm interested to see and those relationships grow. It's about relationships. So, um, you know, your business card is your screenplay or your writing. It may not be necessarily one script, but it just may be, hey, you're a good writer. That's your business card. So hopefully, if something comes up in the future and I'm gonna get fit for somewhere, I'd love to reach out to them or have them reach out to me or have some kind of personal connect and let it be advantageous for both parties. I had a few people request a couple different scripts. Felicity sent out not only my pilot that won the fast track, but I had a couple of one pagers from other projects as well that kind of went out with it. So yeah, it was great to say, hey, read this thing, love it, but also saw this thing over here. Can you send us that too? And that's always a good thing to have multiple things that you can shoot out, because the thing that I've learned very quickly is no doesn't mean your script isn't good. It just means that's not what this particular person is looking for at this time. So you want to have, if you got an action, you got a comedy, you got a drama, and that way they ask for something, bam, you got it. Well, I mean, all contests I mean, they're subjective, but I feel like they can kind of give you a general sense of kind of where you're tracking. Like I know when I first started, I think the first year I submitted to contest, I think I submitted to 20, and I think I only made quarterfinals in two of them. So that was like roughly like 10%. So two out of 20. And then the next year it was five out of 20. And then the next year, and it kept going up and up and up until like, the last couple of years, I'm probably at like 80% kind of thing. And that just kind of, gives you like a little barometer, a little heat check to know like, okay, I'm going in the right direction. I would say submit to ISA. And I'm very vigorous about my thing. I send it through readers, I send it out for coverage, I have it proofread by two separate sets of people. So like I'm like really hitting the hammer on these things before they go out. I think a thing I didn't do in the beginning was I got a draft, one or two people read it, they gave a note or two, I made a quick change, I'm like, this thing is ready to go out, and it wasn't ready, but yet I sent it out. So now I, over the course of writing, I want to say I've written 14 features. So now over the course of 14 features, I've really honed in on my system. Like now I kind of know when a script is ready to go out, when it has something that's not working, and it's like that's a flaw and it's going to hurt you kind of thing. I'm ready when I feel like I'm not going to get surprised by a note. Like, okay, so and I'm just spitballing here, but let's say, I don't know, there's an opening scene and it's a 10-page dialogue scene or something. It's two people having coffee and they're talking for 10 pages, right? Um, for whatever reason, that's what I wanted to open the movie with. Like that, and there's a reason for that. So when I get a note back that says, hey, you may want to trim that opening scene down, it goes on 10 pages, and I'm like, yeah, I already know that note was coming. And I did it on purpose. It's not that I didn't know that, I did it on purpose, kind of thing. So like, when I feel like I'm not getting because most notes I kind of put them in two categories. Like, okay, category A, there's something not working in your story, or category B, what you have is fine, but there's a different way to do it. Um, if I feel like, hey, everything works in there, and the only notes I'm getting back are just personal preference kind of things, then that lets me know the story works. The story's not broken. Because for the most part, even when I give a writer a note, um, I'm giving you the note as this is the way I would have done it. And that's how most people give notes. Not saying that, I mean, maybe sometimes your story isn't working, but they're like, oh, like if I like downbeat endings and you have a happy ending when I read your script, I'm gonna say, you know what, it ended a little too happy for me. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means that's what I would have done with it. Someone else may have liked it as is. So I feel like, the story's ready to go out to me, the script is ready to go out when I feel like the notes are going to be just personal preference notes as opposed to mechanically the thing isn't working. The character moments aren't there. You don't have an arc. You're missing beats. Like those are fundamental things. You want to have that done and just really have the reader say, liked it, but wasn't for me, or just a personal preference thing. And those things you can't argue. Yeah, Felicity and Jaren were great. I worked more with Felicity, but I saw Jaren a couple times on a, Jared a couple Jaren a couple times on a couple of calls. Super nice, very informative. Felicity is she's a track coach running behind you, telling you to keep going. She's funny, but very positive, very nice and sweet. Jaren was thoughtful as well. He's a fellow filmmaker, so he definitely understands the way the Hollywood thing works. But yeah, I think they were both great. Yeah, there's always that little bit of, and this is just me. There's always a little bit of anxiety when it's like anything new, like, oh, okay, it's me, how's this going to go? But when you start them, it's like, oh, it's basic talking to people, just like we're doing right now, and it's like there's nothing to be afraid of. They're not gonna, like no one knows more about my script than me. So like I'm very comfortable talking about a topic that I am the world's utmost expert in. There wasn't this one aha moment. It wasn't like the end of the sixth sense. It's like aha. It wasn't like that. But there's this overall feeling when I got about halfway, 2/3 through it, that it just hit me. It dawned on me like I belong. I felt like this is where I belong. Like you know, I do good work. I do good enough work, more than I feel like I do just as good or if not better work than a lot of working writers and directors. Um, so I feel like I belong, but it's not about that, but it felt good to me to really feel like, hey, I belong and I just need an opportunity. I think it's a good gauge to see where you are. I think ISA is a very fair contest. Like I said, again, I've placed in ISA a few times before I won with different scripts. So like I feel like, it's a good place to be. I think the team, Felicity and Jared, were great. I think they set up some quality meetings. Um, and I think I made some really good connects. So if you're out there and you're thinking about, I'm not sure about ISA, what have you got to lose? I mean, you could be fast tracking and having high quality meetings for a week, so and you don't know what can come of that.